Constitute the official record of this meeting. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United
States of America,
to the republic
to the republic for which it stands,
under God,
under God, liberty and justice for all.
You're just throwing me off. Okay. Public comment, you want to mention
Yeah,
Carter's card?
yeah, Jeremy submitted a card to the board, I put that in the packet. You know, as it says, he's retiring after 25 years.
Yeah,
I'll keep you posted on kind of the unfolding of stuff as it starts to happen,
perfect.
in case you want to participate.
That would be great. Okay, we'll just move straight into discussion and action items. I would take a motion.
Make a motion to approve the collective bargaining agreement as presented.
I second the motion.
Yeah, so we finished up last week, and maybe I'll kind of let the negotiating team, Kara and Danielle, hit the high points. It was a great result, I think.
No, you guys want to, anything you want to mention?
I would just say it was a really seamless negotiation. We're really excited to see the STARS Act get pushed through kind of the legislative process here. So between that and what we've done here, it looks like the average is, we have the average?
10.
Yeah, 10-ish.
Average of a 10% raise for
Yeah.
our hardworking teachers, so really,
That makes collective bargaining easy. We should
Yeah.
do that every year.
We have some money.
Yeah.
but I think the process went really well.
Yeah,
and
everybody was
super
Really
helpful.
professional.
Yeah.
I was reading over it and there are just a couple things that I wondered if we could just change the wording a little bit. Is that okay too?
I mean, you could put it out there that
It's really
Kate's
minor.
online too, so
Okay.
we can go back and
Okay,
do anything with.
okay, it's just a
language
couple language minor things and not a big deal.
Go ahead.
Oh, so there's on page 13, section 13.5, when we were talking to it's item A, it says it's up to the teacher. I just thought maybe the language would be it's the teacher's responsibility or the responsibility of the teacher. It just sounded a little more professional. And then in 13.4, when we said it was suspended for fiscal year 26, and then it will be reassessed, is that correct?
Yeah, it'll just go along, yeah.
Should we put that in there, or?
I mean, I think all of that's getting reassessed as
Okay.
per that kind
Okay.
of opening paragraph.
Okay, and then in 13.8, when we talked about the $1,000 stipend, there's like this weird hashtag by the 1,000. I just wondered if that was in there for a reason or if that's just a
Probably
typo.
just a typo.
Okay, yeah.
Okay, thanks, Danielle. I'll follow up with those.
Yeah, it's nothing big.
Great.
I was hoping we could just still have the same motion to approve the collective bargaining agreement as presented with edits.
Yeah, just like,
It's a typo, more typo.
Yeah. Okay. Great. Anything else? Thank you guys.
So it's-
for- yeah.
The language is 2 years and then the salary is 1 year.
Yeah.
Because it'll all again be based on how we fall within the STARS Act qualifications a year from now. So we'll just keep a close eye on that stuff.
And we'll know more about that as it gets further along in its process itself, right?
So we know now it should be for 2 years at least because it won't get changed at the legislative level. But we have to certify our salaries to
Right.
make sure that we qualify. And it's one of two things, it's a number or it's an average, so we just have to recalculate those averages next year and kind of see where we fall.
Gotcha. Great. Okay, if there's no other questions, call for a vote. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Passes unanimously.
I'll make a motion to approve the petition to Madison County Superintendent of Schools for reconciliation payment for fiscal year 2026 as presented with the effective date to be completed once known.
I second the motion.
It's a long motion.
Yeah.
It's a good one.
Yeah, it is.
It's a really good one.
So I'm gonna actually talk quite a bit right now. So this is House Bill 846. So we've been talking about this probably for the last 3 months, right? It's gonna get tucked in, this language is gonna get tucked in with House Bill 260, which was the, I guess, I'll just call it the Big Sky Resort Area District kind of,
Boundary bill.
yeah, issue, boundary bill. Oh, thanks, Matt. Boundary bill. So this language is gonna get tucked in there. So the board is gonna have one of two choices moving forward. Is to petition for this reconciliation payment, which is gonna fall probably anywhere between $450,000 and $550,000 that we can spend directly towards our general fund. And or move forward to make that boundary adjustment. Both would probably be doable. The one thing we're gonna have to caution against, because we've already been approached by some Madison County residents in our community to start this process right away. Well, the governor hasn't signed the bill yet, for one. And then for two, we're gonna need to, I believe, we're gonna need to find some kind of a backstop if we wanna change that boundary to that $450,000 to $550,000. Now, whether that's Big Sky Resort Area District allocating and promising that money and for a particular time that the board sees fit, then that could be one path that we go. But I think for sure for fiscal year 26, because it isn't an easy process, for fiscal year 26, we really need to petition for this reconciliation payment, calculate that payment in August, work with Ennis to get that. We'll get the first one right after first tax collections and the other half after the second tax collection. So it won't be, we won't get this August 1st. But then I highly encourage the board to educate yourselves on what it says in there, because you're gonna get questions from the community. And that we're on the same page and that we're clear about, we can, cut our deficit by more than 50% almost with these reconciliation payments. And all we're seeking now is a backstop to those payments, or a backstop to the funding gap that changing the boundary, frankly, for 17 kids in our school will cause that gap. So my plan is we will discuss this again once the new trustees are seated, like in detail, and then reach out to Resort Tax and say, okay, where's the rubber really meet the road? This is easy to talk about, but what are you really willing and capable of committing to the school district over this time? Because the bill, for Big Sky School District, this legislative session, should be celebrated.
Yeah, it's been huge.
Because this bill allows us the opportunity to bring in general fund dollars, essentially.
Yeah.
And so this petition is all this is we're gonna petition for a reconciliation payment. The governor has to sign it, so the motion reads without that date.
Right.
And I can complete that effective date, but the deadline to send it to the superintendent of Madison County Schools is the 1st of June.
Yeah.
And I know some community members have reached out to you, Matt, but I think it's really important that everybody just understands it's a process. Even if we wanted to change the boundary, we wouldn't have that done by September 1st.
No,
Right?
we'd have to wait till the next legislative session, correct?
No, we can start that.
Start the petition.
We can start that petition anytime we want.
Yeah.
But the key thing is it has to be a vote of this board will be the one that says, yes, we're willing to accept that boundary transfer or no.
Yeah.
And I think, again, I'm going to just go back to that reconciliation payment was a work of genius by the School Boards Association. Then that's the decision we have to make. But that backstop is going to be important. And there has been some, again, hallway conversations that, maybe Resort Tax could help with that. Fine, but I think we really need to get some kind of a longer term commitment from them before we start going down that road of changing the boundary. If nothing else, because it will reduce the burden of the individual donors and fundraising in the community to cover that deficit year in and year out.
But will they be able to participate in will they be able to run for the school board? Will they be able?
No,
Okay,
Well,
so that's
the
only
way
if
that's
we
written
change the
right
boundary.
now
Yeah,
is, the way it would tuck in is right now they would still have representation through a committee.
an
in the-
advisory
in
council.
the interim, until this is settled.
Okay,
And my only addition there is that I would really encourage the board to continue to act as a fiduciary to the school. And it is a delicate position and dance, but at the end of the day, you're still managing a budget and
right.
in the interim, what is best for the kids at the school.
And so in May, Corky and I, and probably you, Matt Dodd, will bring into this conversation a little bit more in more detail. We'll be able to present like, okay, if the boundary adjustment changes, here's what that means from a tax base at 100,000 on, the same way we report out now, like on $1 million home.
Yeah.
Here's what the reduction would be should that boundary be changed, just so we all have the right information moving forward. And I can send out a text to that bill later today, just so we all are on the same page about when community members do approach us.
well, what's the difference in dollars? Like if the boundary changes, we get that tax.
So, yeah, so the difference is really this. If the boundary doesn't change and we get a reconciliation payment, we can pay that money to whatever we feel like, teacher salaries, for
Okay.
example. If the boundary changes, we're limited almost exactly to what we're limited to now with
Okay.
our own budgets. So, they wouldn't take on the debt service, that would still remain just with Big Sky taxpayers, any
Okay.
debt that we had. But you wouldn't pick up any additional operational dollars. So that's where I think Danielle, like the resort tax, could just function as a granting agency and say, okay, similar to what they do with other government entities in town, we can commit $550,000 for 5 years. A 5-year time frame, that combined with House Bill 408 tax credit dollars, we should be able to get the budget in a really good place. And hopefully over a 5-year time frame, we would be more kind of leveled out with enrollment and with programming and with staffing. So that's the biggest
Okay.
difference. So how Lance Melton from MTSBA put it to Corky and I, the two choices are get the money back into your budget and spend it on your students, or lower taxes for people a little bit. And he's like, my prediction is you get more thank you cards for what you're doing with students than you do for
Taxes.
lowering people's taxes. Not my words, his.
And these reconciliation payments would go on for how long?
As long as the
As long as it
boundaries
stays the same.
stays the same.
Right.
And it's
Dustin, are they obligated to make those payments?
obligated, yes.
I mean, assuming the bill's signed into law.
Yeah, assuming the bill signed into law, they're obligated to make that payment. And so the last time, Matt, Trustee Jennings and I were in Bose and in Helena testifying, all the Ennis people got up and said, great bill, thank you.
Yeah.
So they'll be prepared to make that, because they'll permissive levy that right to their
Yeah.
tuition fund. And then it goes.
I was gonna say, is there any chance that they run out of money and don't have the money to pay for that?
I mean, the only way that would happen is if they just didn't put it in their budget and levy it. And we'll have a meeting with them immediately to say, okay, here's what it costs, here's how much you have to levy. But no, they would be obligated to pay, and if they did levy it through their tuition fund, honestly, they'd have to pay it out of their general fund, because the bill also contains a fast track to district court.
And that's why
Okay.
I do think it's important to kind of keep it moving along.
Yeah.
As everything else can still move in tandem at the moment, but it's important to grasp those dollars.
Right.
Yeah.
To have
While
that
they're
available, yes.
Exactly.
I-
Because otherwise they could not be.
Right,
Yeah.
and so I'll send that again. I think it's just gonna be really important that we educate ourselves, because at the end of
And
the
then
day
what's the value, Dustin?
of,
What, of an A and B? I see I'm looking at the petition.
yeah,
And
so that.
it
so
looks
what
like
they-
their value is different than our value.
Yeah. So that's how it's kind of designed. So if we were to, so we can petition for 19 FTE, which is full-time equivalent students. and let's say our final budget ends up being 40 mills, that'd be about $565,000. So it's going to be based on how many students you have, and then how many mills we have to levy, Matt, to make our budget whole.
I got you. So is there an A and B per student? I mean, I know it may be a ratio, but
Yeah, I mean, I can. Corky, do you have that number?
So are you talking about the conversion of FTE to A and B?
No, I think he's.
yeah, I mean, the mission reads an A and D. That's why I'm trying to use A and B.
So
But
the A and B factors is on the A and B calculation takes into account PIR days and the number of days the students are actually in count or in school. So
Mhm.
where for the Big Sky School District, we might have a enrollment of 400, but our A and B might be 410 based on the calculation.
Gotcha.
So it's just a different. The FTE calculation is critical because we don't get to count. We only get to count kids in effect half year at a time or a semester at a time.
Right.
So if a student, if Sally is there in October and doesn't come, is not there in February, that's a 0.5.
Right.
So
what's the FTE per kid? Is there a number or a calculation?
it's based on a 0.5 per semester. So it's
0.5 of a mil or some other number?
It's based on head count. So if we had 26 kids there in October or whatever, I'm sorry, 26 in February, but there were 8 of those kids that weren't there in the fall. So we get to count 0.5 for those kids. So, and each semester is looked at independently. So if kids are there in the fall, that's a 0.5, and then if they're gone, they don't get to continue rolling forward. So it's really
floating.
you have to look at it in effect 2 semesters at it, whatever, each semester independently.
Can you see this spreadsheet?
Yeah, I'm trying to pull it up right now.
So it's in the calculations are based on previous year's data, previous year's budget, current year's FTE, and future year's budgeted mills.
Okay,
So
that's
bill
kind
is
of what I
not-
needed to understand.
The bill is not well written from that standpoint, but the spreadsheet kind of lays out how it's supposed to be calculated.
So highlighted in turquoise. So last year we operated at what? How many mills, Corky? 26.
22.3.
22.3. So if we budget, so in fiscal year 26, I mean, we already know that 300,000 that was approved by the voters is going to increase our mills. How much, Corky?
I'm sorry.
How much is that 300,000 that was approved by the voters going to increase our mill budgeted mills by 3?
I don't know because it's not going to be 300,000 exactly.
Yeah, whatever. Let's say it's 5.
I
So
don't
if
know
we,
what our taxable value is going to be. It's going to maybe $12.
so that second column, Andrew, I think you're an editor. So if we had budgeted the exact same bills in that second column, mills, budgeted mills, first line turquoise, and let's say we have to add 5 because of the 300,000, that would put us at 27. And enter. So then that reconciliation payment is, I can't read it from here, 380,000 it looks like. If we budget a few more mills, for example, to pay back the debt on the bus barn and get it up to 35 mills, then that's going to increase the reconciliation payment to just south of $500,000. So procedurally, right, and Corky's right, the bill probably wasn't written great from this standpoint because it's fiscal year 25 students and fiscal year 26 mills, but it gives us a lot more flexibility, to be quite honest, in what that reconciliation payment could and should be. Because we do have some permissive funds that we can add a little bit to moving into next year that have been down a little bit. Now, the other thing that's contained within this bill, if people are okay with me moving on slightly, if we take that reconciliation payment, change the boundary, we have to pay that back for 3 consecutive years to them through the tuition fund.
Based on their budgeted mills.
based on their budgeted mills. Which frankly would probably be the first year, because and then the boundary adjustment happens over 3 years, so like 33.3% is taken 1 year, then 33.3, then 33.3. So in the last year, right, their budgeted mills probably could be quite high because they would be making that up. So that's it's based on, the short answer is how much it completely costs us to run the school district without debt service, and then that.
They assess this.
And do we know what our mills are going to be for next year? Our budgeted mills?
I mean, we can anticipate, I think, right, Corky and I have talked a lot about this. We can anticipate, I think, between that 35 and 40 at the high end, and 30 to 35 at kind of the moderate level.
And what control, if any, do we have over setting that mill rate or the budgeted mills?
We have a lot of control, because, right, it would just be Matt. So, as I said, if we, through those permissive levies, if there's some funds that are kind of, being depleted over time, like we budgeted $100,000 in tuition some years ago in order to, in case we thought we might have some students who would need specified care. You can increase that. We still have significant debt on our bus barn. That can be budgeted in, that can be milled into transportation, which is permissive, which would also up our mills. There's a number of those funds. So it's really through those permissive funds, and then what the voter has approved. So we're already going to get an automatic kind of jump with that whatever it's going to end up being, 260, 270, that the voters approved the other day, because that's going to be levied right back locally. So I would anticipate, working with the budget committee and coming to something in August that's going to put us around 35 to 40 mills. So a payment of, roughly $500,000 to between 500,000 and 600,000 from the Anna school district.
Is that 19 a solid number?
That's it. That's set already. That's even written in the petition.
Okay.
But does that get assessed every?
That's because it's based on kids this year,
Okay,
right?
that's what I thought.
Yeah, so
But not very much.
that'll be kids next year. So I mean, it's hard to say what we'll have next year, because one of the kids is graduating. I think there might be a family moving from up there. So that number could go down to 14 even.
Right. And then those budgeted mills are set in August.
Yes.
Right. Yeah, so in August, we'll have the balancing act of how much do we increase local taxes, while at the same time using the increase in local taxes to generate cash through the Reconciliation Act.
Right, because we got to pay to play in that sense.
That's exactly it.
Yep, somebody does.
Okay.
So we'll use those permissive levies strategically to offset future debt, and so that even if we were increasing taxes for 1 year, we're reducing those taxes going forward, while putting money into the flexibility fund to offset general fund expenses.
Yeah, the higher we go, the more flexibility we have, or the more money we have to be flexible. But again, we got to pay in on the front side to then get in us to kick in on their side.
That's
Exactly.
exactly it. Yes,
Okay, thank you for helping me understand that.
you're welcome.
Anything else?
That's all I've got.
Okay. All right. No further discussion. We'll call for a vote. All those in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Passes unanimously. Thanks for talking us through all of that in length.
I'll make a motion to approve the hire of Allison Delaney as a full-time employee for school year 2026-2027.
I second the motion.
Brittany and I worked with Allison. She's thrilled to have her here. So I have a verbal acceptance from her, and this will allow us to send her an official contract, and that'll be for Hofer Elementary School.
Great. Questions? Call for a vote. All those in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Passes unanimously.
Make a motion to approve the hire of Amy De Jesus as a full-time employee for school year 2026, 2027. I got the name right?
Yeah, I think so. So this is
Give me
for,
a second.
I second the motion.
Thanks.
sorry, Matt.
Sorry.
This is for world language at the middle school, high school level. I have an official offer out to her that's reflective of what the contract you approved earlier in this meeting with a deadline of tomorrow or Monday. So we'll be able to send her a full contract and hopefully it works. She
Yeah,
was
she looks highly qualified.
Yeah.
She was highly qualified, and there was someone even more qualified that
Oh,
we
wow.
worked with up until about 2 weeks ago and just couldn't get across the finish line.
Yeah, it'd be nice to have
Yep.
her here for sure. So, any questions? Call for a vote. All those in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Passes unanimously.
Make a motion to approve the renewal of certified staff as presented.
I second the motion.
Anything to say there?
There aren't any non-renewals, which is nice.
Yeah, that's always nice. Call for a vote. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Passes unanimously.
I'll make a motion to approve the renewal of classified staff as presented.
I second the motion.
So with classified staff, we're working through the kind of pay scale right now, anticipating a 5% raise across the board.
Sounds great. Call for a vote. All those in favor?
Aye.
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 Any opposed? Passes unanimously. Future date, so Tuesday 20th?
Yeah, at
Very-
3:45.
An important one. We'll be swearing in.
Yeah, and I'll communicate with the incoming trustees, Barbara Rowley and
Betsy.
Betsy.
Betsy Biggerstaff. And then just before we sign off, I think this would be the last meeting that Kara attends. So I personally want to thank Kara on behalf of the school district for all that you've done, especially, working at the state level and hopefully you can find a way to keep advocating for public schools in Montana in some kind of role in those organizations. So thank you.
Thank you.
I would echo that as
Yes,
well.
thank
It has been a pleasure. Thank you so much,
It's gonna
Kara.
be
for-
less optimized state.
I might take it. So, yeah, thank you again
Thank you.
so much. We'll miss you for sure. So, if that's it, meeting adjourned.
Thanks, everyone.
Everybody.